Hello and welcome to today's video. So in today's video, I interviewed Victoria Baltag, an award-winning Romanian filmmaker. So Victoria shares with us her journey on how she made a full feature film, the Pitesti Experiment. And the Pitesti Experiment relates to a dark chapter in Romania's history where the communism regime took students, took them into prison, and then used a complex web of mental and physical abuse so that these students, inmates, could turn against each other, essentially torturing each other. So Victoria tells us all about that psychological effect, the impact on Romanian culture, and as well we dive into topics relating to filmmaking and advice for young creators and young filmmakers out there. So I hope you enjoy this content and please like and subscribe for more. A bit about who you are and how you got involved in the movie industry.
I've got involved in the movie industry starting with 2010 back in the UK. What a coincidence. When I started to study my MA in film history and television, and I did my first short film. And then I have applied to a festival in London. It was a research festival organized by London School of Economics. Very nice event, and I very much encourage people to check out with research festivals because they are, with lots of information from different areas. And yeah, they selected my movie as well for probably the film section. And yeah, I've got a little award there. It was called the Audience Award, and my professors back to Birmingham University, where I was studying at that time, encouraged me very much to continue on this and to make more movies. And this is how I started actually with that moment. That was a short movie. Imagine as a student, it's really difficult to make a feature film, and I think nobody is doing that because it's a lot of work and a lot of resources, and we barely, found some personal monies to, give a little bit of catering to the actors I was using in my movies during school.
Okay, great. And so could you tell us a bit about your feature film? So the one I saw in Bucharest.
I did so many screenings with different versions of my edit, so I was trying to recall the moment that you have seen it. In the meantime, since you saw it in Bucharest, up to now, we did other changes, and now it's a different version and longer version because now we linked all parts of the movie. I think in that time, back to it was 2018, you've seen just a part of the movie, the second part of the movie, right?
As I remember it, you'd done half of it and you were showing the other half and trying to get some investment to complete
Yeah,
the other half.
exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, if you are in London, I can let you know that I am very delighted to invite you again to my screening to see this time the full version. The movie will be screened in the UK starting with 23rd of February this year in Cineworld cinemas.
It's great to know you got the distributor.
I am doing, yeah. I am doing the distribution myself. It's just because usually for distribution you have to have a budget. For example, to register the movie in the country, in each country you want to screen, you have to pay quite a lot. So it's about couple of thousands, and if you are a charity then you get half price. And for me it's better that I'm doing it myself because then the distributor is taking like 70% out of the tickets, and you get 30%. But on top of that, the cinema is taking 60% from the ticket sale and gives to the distributor 40%. Feature film, it's totally not worth it.
Maybe we should give a bit of background to the listeners and viewers. So maybe you could tell us what the topic is and a bit about the history of the event the movie relates to.
So this is stressing out the re-education phenomena. It's a thing happened in Romania during the dictatorship and communism back to 1948 to 1952, when the best students were encouraged to embrace the Communist Party, and those who refused from different reasons, maybe they were from bourgeois families, or maybe they were from intellectual families, or maybe they were from religious families, all these categories, the elites of the society were not keen to embrace communism, and they ended up in a prison in a city called Pitesti. That's why it's called also the Pitesti Experiment. And the title of my movie, it's Pitesti Experiment. This is the topic of the film, and I chose this topic because for me it was very important to reveal a part of the history, a part of the Romanian hidden history for Romanian people, mainly at that point when I started in 2011. Yeah, this was the year when I started to work for this movie, because I did 4 or 5 years of research as a development stage. I think it's important to know the history in order to learn from past, and to not let this happen again in case that past was very atrocious. And this little part of the history was very atrocious, and for sure you remember the scenes from the second part of the movie, and you can confirm how dark
The
so basically the inmates were forced to torture in between themselves, and it was like a little strategy. They were encouraged to become friends, and then during this little friendship they would try to extract information from one to another, and after this they started to torture themselves. Very difficult to understand how come some people that established a friendship relationship at the beginning, they would end up torturing themselves. The experiment was mainly occurring in the cells. It was not led by the guardians. The guardians were watching, but all these tortures were happening in between the inmates, and this is like very unbelievable. And for me, it was important to show it to the people, to show it to everyone in the world who wants to learn from the past, especially now when we have so difficult times with.
It's very interesting. I think what's also very unusual is kind of like the torture, as you mentioned, is not just physical, but the key element is the mental abuse, and it comes from people you might have been friends with or who you share the same ideology.
I just wanted to say that you're totally right. Yeah, it was a physical and mental torture in between the inmates.
I mean, let me bounce on that. One thing you mentioned earlier was that making this movie is kind of a way to reveal this hidden aspect of Romanian history. So I'm kind of curious, like, is it like the average Romanian is aware of that this happened but doesn't know much about it, or is it something people don't really know about? What's the relationship with that part of history with the average Romanian, or are they just trying to forget and just sort of brush it aside?
I think in France, people would have had the chance to know more about this, because the first books about the Pitesti experiment were written by written by Romanians exiled in France, and they were writing about this. And then in communism, it was very difficult to introduce these books into Romanian libraries, and people were buying them like illegally. And some of intellectuals, they knew about what's going on, because the thing is, even it was happening in a prison, and people would live in that city in Pitești. They had no clue what's going on under the walls, because the guardians were forced to not say a word back when they will go to their families, you know. So basically, the communism was hiding lots of atrocities, for from different reasons. And then when 1809 came with the abolishment of communism, again you could find out about this relatively past, I'm calling it, but only those who would search, because in the books in schools, I haven't learned about this. Now they told me that they put couple of sentences about this re-education phenomena and mental and physical torture between the inmates in the history. The books that are used for teaching the pupils in the primary and secondary school. And I made this movie because in Romania, I felt like people are running away from truth, and also they refuse to believe the truth. When I was learning for the first time about this subject during a summer school, and I was talking to people, to mature people actually. I was in Pitești, where the prison was, and I asked if it's possible to get some directions because I was new in the city, and people told me they never had a prison in their city. Imagine. And then I talked with like people working in academia, and they told me that these are inventions, that people were going to Paris and other countries, and being exiled, they were like fictionalizing the truth in Romania. So basically, their mind refused to believe the truth, because there are lots of evidences, like historical evidences and proofs of those students who were dying in that prison. And now the prison, a part of it, it's a museum, so you can go and visit actually, and you can see more of what I'm talking about in my movie.
How many people were in the prison?
There is no clear evidences about the exact number, because what they did when the communism abolished, they kind of burned lots of archives, lots, because they were afraid of how many illegal stuff and atrocities they did. But it is said that more than 5,000 students were facing tortures in Pitesti Experiment imagine, only during this quite 2-3 years, so 1949 to 1952. Yeah, exactly. They would just disappear. You would meet someone today, like a friend, and tomorrow you'd see that he's no longer available. And at that time, you would not have like a cell phone to call, They were communicating through actual meetings or letters. So sometimes they saw that their colleagues, because they were students, I call them students because they were studying. They were like young people, 18 to 25. Most of them the best students in their areas. They were students at medicine, philosophy, mathematics, theology, so on and so forth. Many areas, because what communists did was to destroy the elites. you know. So if you would be, the best in your area, you would be encouraged to become a member of the Communist Party, because then you would be able to encourage the other students to, embrace the same party. So this was a strategy to convince as many students as possible. And they actually did, because probably most of the population embraced communism back to, now 1948 to um, 90, 98, 1989, sorry, excuse me. Because what they did was, you are with us, or, you are no longer alive. So these were the choices. They killed those who didn't want to respect their rules and embrace their doctrines.
Did anyone from any relatives from like the families of the people that got sent to the Pitesti re-education prison, did anyone, any of those people see your movie, or have you
Mhm.
met any survivors?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, so as I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, I was conducting quite a 4 or 5 years research. I was digging in the archives, in the communist archives. I was reading the books published about this topic, and at one point I made a press release and I let media know that I want to do this movie. And for those who want to help, with information or services or anything, to come to me. And I published my phone number. And this is how the survivors, because at that time there were few survivors alive, and the families of those who were not alive contacted me. And it was very, very important moment, because I made the plan for the movie according to their testimonies. And do you know why this more than the archives and the books? Because I was being told that the archives could be falsificated. So when the prisoners were writing, the declarations in the prisons, they didn't use paper with a pen of ink. Yeah, they were using the pencil, with carbon. So that
Right.
thing, it's very easy to be erased. So what was most important was to take information from actually those who were suffering during those times. And the family of those people, the one that they called me, probably, they were like, as I said, more than 5,000. But I had the chance to talk with a few dozens. We became like family. They are my friends now. They are very, very close to me. And all these years, because now we are like celebrating 12 years since I start to work for this movie. I started in 2011. They are checking of me. They are calling me. They offered information. More than this, some of them, they gave me objects of their parents that were imprisoned in there. And I organized in Romania, only because it was very difficult for me to carry all of these objects. I organized an exhibition before each screening, because last year I was touring in the country, and I put the most important things I had in a big luggage. They were like 40 kilograms. At one point, the wheels were broken, and I had like each day another city. So, you know, I was putting all the things to all these objects for people to watch before the screening, and then I was projecting the movie, and then I took back all the objects, put them back in the luggage, carried the luggage to the train station, going to the next city, preparing again another project, another exhibition. It was like
Wow.
exhausting. Yeah, but it was totally worth it.
What's some of the more unusual objects you were given?
Yeah. I will tell you. Well, actually, I want to organize a museum of the movie because I also have objects I used as props in 2015 when I was shooting, and some of them were objects that Ion Karamitru, our famous actor, used. And this movie is his last movie because he died a few
Oh
years ago,
wow.
unfortunately.
Mm,
Yeah, and he's a huge figure for Romania and internationally as well. So he was working in Hollywood in the Mission Impossible movie, the first one. Yeah, it was one of the movies he participated as an actor. So
mm,
he's huge, and I want to make a sort of a museum, and I'm searching for basically a space and funds to be
mm,
able to run this. And coming back to your question, one of the objects I have, and it's extremely important. It belonged to Constantin Merishka. He was a historian. Of course, in the prison, he was a student, yeah. He gave me, well, his son, Lucian Merishka, that is a journalist, gave me from his father the blanket that his father used while in prison.
wow.
So it was very cold there, and they were not allowed to receive packages with goods from home, and the families didn't know that he's actually there because it was very difficult to find out, as I told you. But finally they could find out where their son is. And when they found out, they put pressure, sent lots of letters to be allowed to send something to the son, maybe, because he was taken with the clothes on himself, so he didn't have anything. And in the letters, the parents asked if he needs medicines or anything, and he said, "I need a blanket the most
Mm,
because it's so cold here." And his mom made the blanket herself. I mean, she was sewing it, sewing. Yeah,
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
this is the word. So she made a blanket from wool because they had like ships, and it's a very big one and very heavy one and very warm one actually. And in one corner it has the number of the son that, in the prison they got numbers.
Mm,
They from they try to erase their identity, and they were not called by their names but by
yeah.
numbers. And the son of Konstantin Merishka that gave me this blanket told me that he was taking some, the inmates with him under the blanket because it was big, and more people could stay there together during
Mm,
the nights. And yeah, this is one of the object that it has a huge value, and I am so lucky that I had the chance to get it. And also lucky because they could I mean the they could preserve it all these years. They kept it
yeah.
even for the family. It was so painful. I think each time when they would see the blanket, they would have their heart
Yeah.
broken because it was very painful moment. But they kept it and they gave it to me while a press conference I had before the screening. So the son of Konstantin Merishka came with it and gave it to me in that moment. It was something that I will never ever be able to forget, and I
Mm,
appreciate a lot this gesture. So
mm,
yeah, objects like this that tell the story from themselves, are part of this museum I want to organize, and I'm searching for a place and
mm.
funds to run it. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, in many ways, I mean, that blanket obviously saved that person's life, right?
Exactly, Paul, exactly. Because it was so cold. Some students were dying of pneumonia and other diseases because they didn't have like a normal way to sleep or to live there. Imagine they basically had nothing. Also
Yeah.
no medicines and yeah.
Let me transition a bit into let's say, the corporate aspect of the film industry. So obviously you mentioned you've been working on it for more than 12 years. Now, imagine somebody who's just starting in that industry, who has maybe a project or an idea. What advice would you give them? What have you like? What are the key learning points or advice you would give a young creative trying to get his creative film out there?
Yeah, I have to be very direct, and even it's harsh. For me, this was the truth. The film industry is a very small, how can I say? It's a very small industry, in fact, and people know people, and most of the things are happening through this networking. If you don't have this networking that is able to help you, or if you don't have the money to fund your idea, it will be extremely hard to make it happen. Extremely hard. For me, it was, you know, taking 12 years from my life, working full time all these years, basically, because it was so much work from crowdfunding to development, pre-production, production, post-production. Now I'm working on the distribution, and as I explained to you, I'm doing the distribution myself. So basically I am calling the cinemas myself. I'm preparing all the documents and all the technical part for delivering the movie to the cinemas and so on and so forth. And it's extremely difficult since you are not famous distributor with a famous name that people would put their cinemas at your disposal. For me, it's a huge thing that I managed to convince cinemas and associations or cultural organizations and academic organizations in the world. I've been in Mexico for 1 month screening it. I've been last year only. So last year I've been to Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and also I did the tour in more than 44 locations in Romania. So it was a really, really active work that I've put into this. So all in all, I want every person that wants to become a filmmaker know that everybody has ideas. The most important thing is to be capable to project your idea into reality. And I want them to know that their ideas are not that important. So ideas are not important. It's important the implementation of ideas. This is important. Yeah. Because I hear lots of people, oh, I have a great idea for a movie, or I've been writing a book. Will you make a movie out of it? Well, I can deliver this to many people too, and if they would make a movie for me, I'll be very, very happy, right? To make a movie needs lots of ambition, lots of risk, Paul. Imagine that you do not have like a decent life. You have to have huge sacrifices, especially if you do independent work, and if you don't have that network I told you about, or those funds that I mentioned. So if you want to do it independently, you have to make enormously huge sacrifices. But if you believe in your story, and if you believe that is it worth it, and you made it for the society and the attention, not for the money, because if you want to become a filmmaker for the money, forget about that. To make movies is a power. So you've been given a power to contribute in a way to the society. And if your thought is to make money, foremost, then you better do banking. No need to make films, Of course, money would come, and for sure, any work would be paid. But I want to let people know that in my case, I worked for 12 years unpaid. I put all my money in. I worked in other areas in order to have possibilities to live, and I was not paid for my work in the work I've put in the movie. And also more than 1,000 people that contributed to my movie, my actors, my part of the crew, they were not paid yet. And it's a huge thing if you again believe in the necessity of that story that needs to be revealed in the movie to change mentalities, to help the society develop, to help the society grow, to give another angle of a view to anyway, filmmaking is about contribution. Because in the past, well, in my country, it was like a political tool to manipulate the society, and this was totally wrong. But nowadays we have like independent filmmaking that they make movies and they have a voice, and they do it as they feel, and they reveal to the society different topics, and means a lot. This freedom that the film industry has means a lot.
I hadn't really thought of it that way, but since in Romania communism ended early 90s, is that right? So I guess the kind of idea of making films on any topic is relatively recent, right?
You mean if in Romania independent filmmaking is a new thing? Before, well, there were like few that they were like, let's say, smart enough to pose as propaganda, but they were showing much more, but they were very, very few. But yeah, most of the movies were fully propaganda, fully propaganda. And it was just one filmmaker that was supported by the state. In those times, you could not become a filmmaker if you would be a woman, for example. I've met lots of women that were like coming to see my work, and they encouraged me a lot, and they told me, look, I wanted to be a filmmaker too. But in the last year of university, they told me that I will be only a secretary in that company. So yeah, it was hard times, and I think there is a lot of pain that comes from communism and dictatorship in Romania that is revealing even now. It's a topic that was treated before in terms of communism. So there were lots of subjects, lots of movies about different topics related to communism. But my movie is the first feature film about this re-education phenomena and the Pitesti experiment.
So yeah, thanks so much, Victoria. I think we can get ready to wrap up. I do have one last question I like to ask people I interview,
Sure.
which is so obviously you worked on this project for 12 years, and I'm kind of curious about kind of like the practical aspect of organizing your work. So I ask the people I interview, is there a specific tool or specific method you use to organize your day to day?
Back to 2011 when I started, I didn't use that much Google Map, and also, I was going to meet people, to talk to people, to see locations. It's called the scouting location. This process, I did the castings. I talk with people that were keen to become crew members. So there was a lot of offline activity. So for this offline activity, of course, I had a notebook. Well, to be honest, I'm keeping in my library many notebooks from those times. And I was looking back to what I was writing, and I was extremely organized back.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Victoria.
Thank you as well.